Welcome to Solved, the political discussion show for people with attention spans and those looking to develop one. My name is Jay, and our other resident solvers are Amanda, Deon, and Erin, who will offer a greeting now.
Hey there.
Hello.
How's it going?
Collectively, we produce the venerable, indispensable, not to mention award-winning podcast Best of the Left, which is now 20 years old, where humans, that's us, curate progressive media on a chosen topic, creating episodes that are greater than the sum of their parts. On this show, we use those same curation skills to pull together stories and ideas to help us solve some of society's biggest problems, because if we don't tell you how to think, someone dumber on the internet will. Today, we will find clarity on how actually everyone is having a hard time in the loneliness epidemic and why there's really no good reason to break it down into gendered think pieces, raising the alarm about young men while ignoring the loneliness of women just because men are louder complainers. And we'll present a timely remedy for loneliness that anyone of any age can do. We begin with, does anyone care that young women are just as lonely as men, from Cosmopolitan magazine, to which I think we can just answer no and move on. That one's asked and answered. Here's the key point. An expert interviewed in the article says, quote, "Women take on an especially high level of pressure and urgency to feel a deep connective tissue in a friendship. Women tend to view loneliness as a personal failure, but men, broadly speaking, are more likely to externalize the feeling, like what's wrong with other people, or to not recognize it at all," end quote. So, that sort of like helps us understand why men end up being louder in their complaining. Deon, do you find that men tend to take up more space and more than their fair share in conversations and sort of edge other people out?
I'm going to let the non-men in the discussion take the lead here. Step back.
Nice. You didn't fall for it.
I like that we're addressing this topic because we've talked about men like previously on Solved episodes. And I think that you can talk about issues and how they impact specific genders. But I like this topic because if we constantly are hyper-focused on one group, we're not addressing the larger issues. And these are systemic. This isn't just, again, individual failings or just society hating men. Like there's larger issues at play. So I'm happy to be having this conversation.
Yeah, and on that note, that is actually what feminism is arguing for and has been arguing for,
absolutely.
that we all do well and feel equal in society and are cared for and have what we need, although that gets skewed sometimes and misrepresented.
I thought feminists just wanted women to rule the world. That's what I keep hearing. Isn't that what it's about?
Deon.
Nope.
Okay. Gotta start breaking out of your bubble someday. I don't know.
Me and my Rogan listening.
No, I mean, I think it wasn't too long ago. I believe it was on the bonus show that I was talking about how I hated how a certain article was framed as if feminists haven't been thinking about the ways that, our patriarchal system impact men. When, 16 years ago, I was sitting in a women's studies class, and like that was one of the main things that we talked about. Like, of course, we talked about women and how their lives are impacted across the board, both in work, at home, things like that. But we heavily focused on how it impacts men. There's just like power dynamics. And obviously it fits a better narrative when you villainize feminism instead of making it a collective
Like project.
Political effort or collective project. Yes.
You used a scary buzzword. You said collective.
No. Well, that's what we're going to learn today, Deon. It's the we, the power of the we.
All right.
That's right.
Yeah. So now looking to at least some of those or the figurehead of those who insist loudly on making loneliness a gendered problem, we turn to "What did men do to deserve this?" from the New Yorker. And it begins, "Bald, white, and jacked, Scott Galloway is an action figure of the tech and finance overclass." And goes on, "Galloway has also become a leading evangelist for a notion that rapidly solidified into conventional wisdom. America's young men are in crisis." end quote. Then a little bit further down, it like gets into his recommendations. It says, quote, the good man of the reasonable center, in Galloway's view, adheres to a code indistinguishable from that of the Boy Scouts: mental and physical fitness, emotional resilience, hard work, financial prudence, caring for others. Few could object to any of this, but the person it describes, a kind and conscientious sort who aspires to make a decent living and who looks after their loved ones, seems blessedly gender free. So why make this about manhood? Even the Boy Scouts have gone co-ed, end quote. And
Clap, clap,
we're
clap.
going to keep, picking at that, but that really is the question: is why? Why does it need to be gendered when so much of the problems and advice are universally applicable? Like, who thinks it's a good idea to break it down by gender? And I mean, it seems to come from like a little bit of statistics that may or may not show a clear picture or a slightly skewed picture. It's always easy to misread statistics. But I think, as Erin pointed out, it's like, if you're breaking it down by group, you're always going to run the risk of missing the bigger picture.
And acting as though we have to fit solutions around one group, as though they need this custom solution. And you, by doing that, do exclude anyone else who's in that group. And we're not talking about big discrepancies here. I mean, it's almost equal. And when you start talking about age and you break it down on that level, you start to see that younger people are having the biggest difficulty with loneliness. And so that raises questions about, how has our society changed? What is emphasized now that wasn't before? And if you only focus on men, who, again, it's about equal, I think it was 15%, 16% men to women, like, you are going to miss the real broader solutions that take everyone along on the journey and improve lives. And you're going to miss the forest for trees. You're not even going to look at the things that probably are the biggest causes.
I think it's really telling that we just have accepted this narrative that young men are lonely. That's the problem, the end. Because that is the consensus. It's not even considered that young women could be lonely. Women in general could be lonely. I know that, like, my family moved because my wife was feeling lonely. I work nights sometimes, and we lived in a house that wasn't really attached to a place. And my wife was lonely while being married. Not, completely unhappy or whatever, but like just needed more connection to community. She's a female and capable of being lonely. Those two things are not like mutually exclusive.
Right.
Why we've just accepted that only men can be lonely, or more importantly, only men's loneliness matters, is really something that needs to be thought about way more.
When I just think we also like come up with better solutions when we look at larger groups. I've been going back and forth for a couple years now on my thoughts about like male only spaces. And so there's like, I work in nonprofits. There's nonprofits that are specifically aiming to put young men with male mentors, men only spaces. And all the workers there are men. Obviously, they meet in groups that are men. And I didn't have like an immediate rejection of it, but I did think that I've always made an argument about co-ed sports and the fact that when genders come together and learn to work together instead of always being pitted against each other or having very specific things that they can seek out in the opposite gender, right? Like relationships, romantic, that it actually sets us back as a society. And I kind of think that about even looking at mentoring. It's not like you don't need people in your life that you can look up to and respect, but the fact that there's a gender specifically for you, like it has to be someone of the same gender, instead of like being able to find mentors of either gender that are a good fit for the child, like specifically. I don't know. Again, I very much am open to arguments for or against it. I'm still sorting through it. But I do think that like when we make it that specific, we miss other things that can be offered. And there are a lot of things that we can learn from mentors of different genders just because they have different experiences. Like they have different things to offer you, period.
Going back to Scott Galloway for a second, because I think it's worth talking about him a bit. What I find interesting about him is he's willing to come at this whole crisis, if you will, from at least a more open perspective, not a like we need to subject, and suppress women in order for men to feel okay. Okay, great. But he often falls victim to avoiding women entirely. Like he does not talk about the other half. He may say like be a good partner, to the woman in your life, but he doesn't then go on to talk about like what is happening, I'm sure in many households at the same time. Like maybe both partners are experiencing loneliness, right? But what is the social responsibility of women to ensure that their partner is okay versus the other way around? And I do think, and the Cosmopolitan article mentioned this, that there have been some things written about quote unquote man keeping recently, and the idea that women feel responsible for their male partner's loneliness, that they have to manage like making sure they're seeing their friends or have a network of some kind. And there is not much happening the other direction, it seems. And the fact that Galloway doesn't really even touch on that at all and doesn't feel that it's important shows his big blind spot. And while he may hit some notes correctly, he often ends up hitting a fair amount wrong because he's not seeing the whole picture. And I think that's the point here. It's not just Scott Galloway, it's all of us. I got to be honest, this topic started to bubble up because I didn't know that the numbers were so close together. I really didn't, because all we've been hearing from the media is the male loneliness crisis. And I do blame the media for giving it a tagline and kind of making it this phrase that we now all know culturally, because they, by the very nature of how they do things, have obscured the whole picture. They've gone for the kind of most eye-catching, eye-popping thing that they think explains our current moment. I have no doubt in my mind that journalists writing about the male loneliness epidemic believe that this is why we are where we are, right? And there are definitely, it's not like that isn't true at all. But I also remember not that long ago, we were talking about young teenage girls and a suicide epidemic. And suddenly we stopped talking about that entirely. And now we are only focused on this. And part of that is the branding of studies like this go through the tumble of the media world, and they come out on the other side with this easy catchphrase that we can all use and say, oh yeah, this is why things are the way they are. Well, as with literally everything, and this is why we do the show we do, it's more complicated than that, and there's a lot more nuance that needs to be explored.
Before we started recording, Deon sort of nailed it, talking about Galloway in the context of the Overton window, right? Like culturally and politically, things have shifted so much that this dude, who's probably just a moderate Reagan Republican in the era of Trump fascism, is now seen as a like moderate lefty who is saying interesting things that sound like a leftist could say it. He says other things that don't sound that way, but it's like, well, people on the left would be saying that. And in an era of polarization, that must mean he's like basically a progressive. But the bar set for people talking about men is like Jordan Peterson and Josh Hawley. And they both, want to like nearly enslave women as sex objects, right? So
yeah, the bar is low.
Yeah, the bar is not high. Galloway cleared that bar, and he's like sort of the only one. I mean, first of all, he's like rich and a white dude and has access to media, and so he was able to say some things and have people pay attention to him. And he said things that really despicable people are also talking about, and he just said it in a not despicable way. And that was it. Like, that was enough. Great. He's our guy. He knows what's going on. Let's all listen to him. And yeah, I mean, it's important to understand how these phenomenon work, in addition to what Amanda just said about the tumble of the media and how a research study goes in one side and a branded phenomenon comes out the other, right? So proceed with caution with every new, oh my God, look what's happening now. Because, as with the young women suicide epidemic, sort of spurred by social media, we think it's like that was pretty easy to get people to forget about. real fast. When this came up, particularly, and this does get talked about in some of these articles, is like, well, when men are lonely, they become genuinely dangerous. Some of them. So like that's a bigger story. They become dangerous to other people. Social media might be dangerous to women and they might take their own lives. Men get in a situation where they start taking other people's lives. So that's a bigger story. And that is exactly the reason why men and women are experiencing loneliness at about the same rate, but we're focusing on men because the way they are impacting the rest of society is so much more detrimental than the way women are reacting. And as we sort of move through an understanding of this, there's another quote from this article with another bad take, this one from Rahm Emanuel, neoliberal corporate Democrat dipshit from the Obama era, I will note. And the article says, Emanuel, in his Washington Post op-ed, endorses a double standard with even greater frankness. The cost of housing, he writes, quote, is, of course, a problem for all Americans, men and women alike. But unpopular as it might be to say in some quarters of my party, the crisis affects one gender with particular potency. End quote from Rahm Emanuel, but the article continues. In other words, men and women pay the same bill, but we are obligated to understand that the social and spiritual price it extracts from men is higher. End quote. And this is really starting to get to the point. The basic argument being made about how bad men have it these days in a variety of areas is that even if men and women have the same problems, they feel worse for men for some reason. And here's what the article says on it. Quote, what these pundits are nudging us to do ever so politely is accept that women in the main are accustomed to being degraded, a little underpaid and ignored and dampened in their ambitions in ways that men are not and will never be. End quote.
Yep.
Whew.
It's an expectations problem, I guess.
This is the same argument that was used to justify slavery, that black people are just, they're predisposed to doing this work, right? It's just in their nature. It's just in women's nature to get paid less, to take more bullshit, to accept less. That's just in their nature. These are the arguments that are being made. And I think a lot of our society is completely structured around these still existent beliefs in a lot of ways. Recently, my wife and I went on vacation and had a babysitter fall through and needed another babysitter. Not a problem. Had my 7-year-old daughter stay with someone else. My wife and I talked about this. Her 7-year-old cousin, if we had to do the same thing, her 7-year-old boy cousin, no chance. There's no chance we could have left that boy with this person with no instructions, safety manuals, all this other stuff, because that kid is not held to the same standard that we hold our daughter to. I don't know that we would do it differently if we had a son. I hope that we would, but maybe we wouldn't, because the way we raise boys is different than we raise girls. We expect girls to just be better, and boys will be boys is still a thing that exists today, and it exists and creates these men who don't know why they're lonely, don't know how to deal with anything. I've said it before on this show, are just unfuckable losers. And that's the issue. We have a loneliness epidemic among everyone and an unfuckable loser problem with men. And those people become, like Jay was saying, become dangerous. And women have to worry about, like, the reason why we talk about male loneliness more than we talk about women's loneliness is right in what Jay was talking about, because they become dangerous. Women would become lonely, internalize, try to figure out how to deal with it, accept it as a problem of self and all these other things. When men do it, sometimes they lash out. Sometimes they go shoot up a bunch of people. Like, that happens all the time in this country specifically. So while it isn't a bigger problem in the numbers of men and women being lonely, the effects of it are because men are just ill-equipped from childhood to deal with their emotions, to self-reflect. We've talked about it on this show, I think, too. Jay and I are definitely not as in touch with our emotions as Erin and Amanda. That's real. I've tried over the last few years to be better. I think meeting my wife, being in the relationship that we're in, I think I am better now than I was, but I'm nowhere near where she is. I don't know that I'll get there because I started at a different spot. I wasn't expected to.
Yeah.
Excuses are made for boys' behavior that just aren't for women. And until we address root causes, this is just going to continue, and we'll have the think pieces about what's wrong with men.
Well, and again, what we're talking about is a socialization, right? That boys and girls are socialized differently based on how society thinks that they should act as adults. But really, there's always someone who's willing to give you the biological argument. Like, I saw a
Mm.
video that was explaining why 3 to 5 year old boy toddlers are just more difficult. They need more physical activity. They need to be able to push, to climb, to da 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 da. And they were giving a biological reason for this. No, that's not what it is. Like, biologically, men and women are so similar. We like to talk about hormones, we like to hyperfixate on our differences, but, like, the first thing you learn in Bio 101 is that we are
Yeah.
way more similar. The differences between us, we're talking minimal percentages, and I think that because you can point to those differences, we use those as excuses not to address root causes. And I think, at what point does our society break free and start, poking at the holes, addressing them? And it always comes back to capitalism. Like, why is everybody so miserable? It has to do with, like, what we're forced to do. I thought that when, like, they're talking about boys' place, like, they no longer are the breadwinners. Where do they go? Like, what is a male's role in as a father, as, a husband? Like, what is the role? I was like, "You don't think women are out there lost about their role?"
Mhm.
Like, it is a shitty system that no one feels great about. Like, I know very few people who can say they actually like their job, that they feel satisfied, that they feel like they make a difference, that their contributions are seen, heard, validated, and that it's in alignment with themselves and their personal life. I know very few people. Like, we are in a shitty system, and if we keep saying, like, "Well, this is specifically a men's issue, and this is specifically the women's issue," like, we're never actually going to address the overarching issues.
Yeah, and what I also get very frustrated about is that I feel like it's very easy to see where the anger should be directed. Like, DM, when you talk about, like basically starting from behind emotionally, right? Men have been socialized to be at a disadvantage emotionally. Like, I think that's a fair statement. And the anger should be at the larger patriarchal system that has made it so that that is how we raise boys. We do not cater to their emotional needs as much as girls, or we expect certain things of them that just by default means that we're not focusing on managing emotions and learning about emotions and diving deeper with them, and even how they play and how male friendships evolve. Like, it's not because, oh, this is the way it is because we all have agreed on this kind of bullshit system where we think we can put people in boxes, and that, like Erin said, like, of course we're the same. Of course we're the same. The idea that you have to raise one child dramatically differently than another is ridiculous. Because I obviously, as a woman, understand that when men are lonely and sad, all women are at risk, right? Like, you just increased our rate of violence and our fear in the world, and that sucks. And so it is always our problem to deal with, no matter what, right? But I desperately wish that the anger that men feel could be directed at what got them there, like at the root, instead of, well, it must be women because they're having an easier time or something, or they're not dating me, or whatever it might be, right? There's a reason. There is a reason. There's a root cause, but it's not an easy fix. And I think right now men are looking for an easy fix. And I think there are people, some of whom are running our country, who are saying, yeah, we can offer you an easy fix. The sad, sad part of it is it's not an easy fix. It's transformation of society. It's definitely possible, but it's not an easy fix. It's not, let's bring back manufacturing jobs and everything will be better. No.
Erin, you touched on the capitalism angle a little bit, which reminded me of a piece of one of these articles that I actually didn't pull a quote from, but they're talking about how a couple of, I think, conservative women went on to a show to have a discussion about women entering the workforce pushed men out of the workforce and then helped create the crisis for men. And what that reminded me of is go on a little bit of a journey with me. It reminded me of the general argument that the anti-trans radical feminists make, the J.K. Rowlings of the world, who have this well, in the pure male female gender binary, women had to fight for a lot of rights. And now there are trans women who are making us nervous and are threatening our rights, but we fought hard for those rights. And so we have to fight it. And so take those, let's say there's legitimacy to the point being made by those conservative women saying that women entering the workforce had an impact on men in the workforce. Okay, let's say there was an impact. Why are we narrowing our focus to the point that we're starting with only right where we are right now? We're ignoring the entire past of women being excluded from the workforce. We're ignoring the entire past of trans people existing but not being allowed to exist publicly. We're ignoring that entire past, and we're starting just now where it's convenient for my argument and saying these people existing is inconvenient for me, and so I'm arguing against them. It makes no sense when you pull back just a little bit, and you just have to recognize so what's your point? What should we then do? Women exist in the world and deserve the right to work. So what's your point about women entering the workforce and pushing men out? That they shouldn't have done that? Well, that's inhumane. Trans people exist. If you think that they are threatening women, which is a whole other argument anyway, if you think that, what is your point? Because they actually exist in the world, and they always have. So arguing that they should go away, make themselves scarce, stop scaring me, is inhumane. That cannot be your argument. So there has to be just some different path forward that acknowledges the totality of reality and all the people who live on this world and have to figure out how to live together.
Well, and can we stop operating from a scarcity that I can only have my
Yep.
rights if you don't have yours?
Yeah, it's not pie. No.
There is the elephant in the room here with the patriarchal system. If in this patriarchal system women are actually taking men's jobs, whatever that means, doesn't that mean they're better at those jobs? Doesn't that mean they are doing a better job? Which punctures the myth of male superiority, which is, I think, at the heart of why people like Galloway want to focus on making these men better, because he's coming from it, whether he knows it or not, from the patriarchy perspective, that we need to have men in charge. But that's just not true. It's not borne out by facts. It's not borne out by who's doing better in schools right now. It's not borne out by globally what countries are happier. The countries that are happier have more women in leadership. That's just a fact. It's not convenient for people who want to believe in these myths about male superiority, white supremacy, those things. It's just not true. And they want to change reality to conform to their myths and not adjust their belief systems to reality.
And now we're moving away from the gender dynamic and looking more at the generational and age dynamic. The article, "The Male Loneliness Epidemic is a Myth," starts by pointing out that it's actually better understood through the lens of age rather than gender, and says, quote, "There's a Gen Z loneliness problem, not just a male loneliness problem. So why are men making themselves the center of attention, asking for women to pity them? Men struggle to confide in other people, build strong emotional support systems, or use support systems even when they know they're there. They are less willing than women to talk to their friends, mothers, other family members, or mental health professionals. This may be why the risk of suicide for men is 3 to 5 times greater than that for women across every age group," end quote. And what we have already been saying is this is not any individual person's fault. It's not even men as a group's fault. It is the socialization of men's fault that create a group of people who are unable to do the things this article is pointing out. They are unable to reach out for help when they need it. They're unable to take advantage of resources even if they know they're there. And that is incredibly detrimental to their health. So yes, it is absolutely a structural problem. I don't know that enough of the conversation about the men crisis is about how they're being raised.
Yeah.
If that was the focus, I think it'd be a lot easier to get on board.
Yeah. And to be clear, like, this is sad. I don't think anyone is happy about this. Like, there's obviously anger at the way men express their anger. And I think that's fair. But everyone has some pity for the fact that men feel they can't reach out for help. That is a huge problem and so deeply sad. And yeah, it causes them to have a higher suicide rate. The male suicide problem there is at least 1 month dedicated to raising awareness about it, but it is obviously an issue. As Jay said, the problem is we are not pointing to the root cause. We are not saying this starts from the beginning. We are setting men up to fail here. We are not allowing them to be able to get over the ego, I guess, of asking for help. And it's killing them. Like, this is the problem, right? And women are not A-okay, but perhaps have been given much more leeway when it comes to, if you are in crisis, ask for help. I'm absolutely sure it is not every woman's first inclination to reach out for help. I know those women personally, but there's definitely more leeway on a societal level for women to reach out, and then they may get help, and then they don't end up taking their own lives. I mean, this is a life or death issue here, but we need to talk about it on this larger level, because if men are ill-equipped to handle the loneliness crisis that we are all feeling, it seems to me that we have a two-prong approach, right? All the things that you would tell someone to do if they're sad or feeling like things are not worth living for, like, there's all of those things you would give advice about. But then you have to dismantle the patriarchy too. Like, there is no other option. You have to do that part simultaneously. And I think that this article basically kind of screams out to men to say, like, hey, we know what the biggest issue is here. And I'm less and less sure we can make progress in that way. I wish people like Scott Galloway were focusing on this part too, because you cannot just focus on one half of this problem. Like, this is the core of it. And look, yeah, society has changed. And one of the lines in this article I loved was, men have been promised dominance without intimacy, but now their dominance isn't promised or expected. Yet men still measure their worth based on outdated expectations, refusing to adapt to the modern world in which women want men to be their equals, both in the workforce and in the emotional realm. Like, yeah, things have changed. There might be a societal shift to get adjusted, but the problem is always the same. We have built a societal structure that puts men behind the curve emotionally and means that they will never seek the help they desperately need when crisis or a societal shift happens. They won't reach out for the tools that are available. How desperately, desperately sad.
Like, specifically thinking about Gen Z and being raised, like, obviously I've had my experience as a millennial and how we were raised and the similarities that I see in men that are around my age. But I think with the younger group, also that socialization that we thought was going to get better, that was going to get more progressive, I don't know that it necessarily happened. And like thinking about all of these articles and the catchiness of like the male epidemic, the male loneliness epidemic, like really centering men in it. And it kind of dawned on me that we socialize men to care about specific things. So if we just made it a loneliness epidemic, if we included men and women are experiencing, things like that, I don't think as many men would tune into it or pay attention to the content. And that's unfortunate. I think, kind of what I talked about with mentors of like a good mentor is just a good mentor. It doesn't really matter their gender. I think the same about like addressing things that you're experiencing in your life. Like if you're experiencing loneliness, it shouldn't have to specifically be labeled male loneliness. But I think for Gen Z and like the ones that we're most concerned about, especially the ones that borderline have violent tendencies, like they're not going to tune in to just broad ranging things. Like they would tune into something that was specifically labeled for them. And that's how you almost fall into the manosphere because
Yeah.
all of that it's not you. it is women. It is somebody else. It's your fucking mom. Like,
Yeah,
whatever it
yeah.
needs to be, there's an answer for it. And yeah, I don't know how we address it other than socializing and addressing root causes, because maybe if their life starts being better, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not an expert in that realm.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, I mean, I don't have personal experience, but I mean, I've certainly seen the articles and the references to the parents who tried desperately to raise good, thoughtful, emotionally competent boys who then fell into the manosphere anyway.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it is about how boys are raised, but I mean, honestly, the construction of our online media
Yeah.
ecosystem is like profoundly impactful.
They're influencers for a reason, right? Like they know how to hook and to pull people in. And when you're young and you don't have a lot of experience in the world and your brain's not even fully developed, boy, is that attractive and shiny and interesting.
Well, that's like why I like to frame it as socialization, because I don't think then that is specific to how you're raised. It's also the environment in which you find yourself. And I think that is really the larger problem versus like just parents. Not
Mhm.
because I agree with you that I've seen that there's a concerted effort and that there's conversations around emotional intelligence specifically, like even schools. It's not at the level it needs to be at, clearly, but and
Mhm.
we continue to divest from public education. But as a realm, you can be taught by, the most, I don't know, well-adjusted male in your life to be a good male, and then you're around a bunch of bros that you wanna fit in with. Like, of course, you're gonna end up leaning into some of their tendencies, believing some of the things that they say.
Yeah. And we're in a
Yeah.
moment, of course, where it's trendy. And that is extra, extra dangerous because then it's also about fitting in, which everyone wants to do. And at that time in your life, it is basically the most important thing.
Oh, for sure. Like, so important. So important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but what we've been saying for, I think, years now is it's not going to work. It's literally actually not going to get these
Yeah.
men what they say they want. It's
Mhm.
literally not going to work. And systems that don't work don't last. That's kind of where my hope comes from, that all these dudes desperate for connection and romance and intimacy who think it's being robbed from them, and so they go down the manosphere path, are running straight into a brick wall. Like they'll feel cathartically angry, but it will not improve their lives, their intimacy, their chances at romance or anything like that. This article concludes, quote, "The Generation Z loneliness problem won't be solved easily, especially not in the era of technology, which has robbed us of spaces to meaningfully connect with others. But the male loneliness epidemic, in scare quotes, can be solved if men adopt and embrace feminism, scrapping the idea of a traditional breadwinning man and work to build a society of men with empathy who genuinely care about people's well-being," end quote. The bar is so low. Again, like the manosphere is creating a dynamic in which to be seen as a good guy is easier now than it's basically ever been, because women are horrified by what they are seeing. And if you're just like vaguely normal and express like concern for others' well being or their feelings, they will think you have been sent from heaven. It's like, this can't last. People are going to go along for a while and figure out, it seems like I might be being lied to because this isn't working. And these other guys who say I'm an asshole always have a girlfriend. What's going on there?
I'm going to propose a spin-off podcast where we teach men to do housework so that they can get laid. that just being the goal. It's like
There's a guy who does that,
yeah.
Deon.
Okay. Because like that's a huge under-discussed part of this too. I know it's in the articles, but we didn't really talk about it. Like in this search for equality, there's also this still unwritten, undiscussed expectation for women to still do all the domestic stuff. And Scott Galloway and like, Rahm Emanuel, that's kind of what they're implying. The way they talk about it is like, okay, women have these, but they're still going to do the housework, guys. Your job is to make money. And then when you come home, just kind of be there for a little bit. That's all you really have to do. You don't have to, change a diaper. You don't have to mop a kitchen, scrub a bathroom. Like, that's not part of it. No, that is part of it. Like, we got to change all these expectations. And what the manosphere is offering, I mean, they show it. They have all those shows. They have OnlyFans models. They're offering an imaginary version of women that aren't real. And they're mad at those women that aren't real. I've seen so many clips
Yeah.
of those guys talking about how all these women are on OnlyFans. Like, what percentage of women do you think have OnlyFans, Chief? It's not really high. You're not
Yeah.
talking about women. You're
Yeah.
talking about some imagined version of those people. That's not even who those people actually are. Like, it's all fantasy. We have to start breaking through these fantasies about what men are, what women are, what the roles are. Like, reality, it can be better. It can be a little more boring than the fantasies they have in their heads, but it can be a lot better.
Yeah. And honestly, what I hear, Deon, when those guys talk like that is that they're angry that the woman they can't actually access, like, is attractive to them. And what that screams to me is I need intimacy. I need like closeness, and I need a relationship and a person that I can feel safe with and loved by. And like, again, it's like we always go back and forth about how much empathy to have for some of these bros because it's very difficult. But on some level, I can't help but have a little bit of empathy because I know that the reason they are the way they are is because they're starved. And they certainly have done a lot of things in their lives to reinforce their starvation. But maybe in the beginning, it was a larger systemic and social forces that really.
And this is why
started it all.
you're better than me. A perfect example, Amanda. Because I do.
It's hard. It's hard to have the empathy.
I have been told many times by several guys, like, man, you have a lot of girlfriends, like female friends. How do you do that? I don't know. I talk to them. It's not that complicated. It really isn't. It never has been. If you don't like see them as object to get something from, rather like, your buddy that you talk to about sports or whatever, well, she might like to talk about that, whatever. They're like, if you start seeing people as people, it makes things a lot easier.
Yeah.
And like, I know that for some reason there's some structural boundaries to that, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
Okay, here's my pep talk for all the lonely men and boys out there who have a sneaking suspicion that women are the cause of all their problems. Here's what I'll say. Look, it's impossible to know where ideas like this came from, but it's long past time that you man up, grow some balls, stop being such a pussy about this, always looking at the world through a gendered lens that frames masculinity as good and femininity as bad. I mean, what are you, some kind of sissy? You can't man up and see women as full human beings with full autonomy rather than a foil for your hero's journey. And if that feels harsh, don't be such a girl about it and cry, get all emotional. Boys don't cry. And look, like, maybe you're not guilty of this personally, but this whole lot of men looking in every direction other than patriarchy for the cause of their problems are being downright hysterical.
Oh my God.
You might need to look that one up. And you're causing more problems for everyone else while not even helping yourself. Young women, I know, are horrified by the dating pool that they see because you're pissing in it. And as I said, we simply can't know how essentially every member of mankind has been taught from Adam and that treacherous Eve all the way up to the feminists of today that women are your fundamental problem, or how those kinds of ideas continue to permeate everyday culture. But it's time to be a little ballsy. Get out of your safe space of anger and resentment and consider the possibility that rather than setting specific gendered roles for everyone to be resentful about, maybe seeing everyone, men and women, as fully human with the right to be fully free from arbitrary gendered cultural expectations might be a better path to getting yourself a missus.
A lot of mixed messages in there. A lot of mixed.
Mic drop. Yeah, there's it's a few.
In other words, Deon, you already summed this up quite nicely once. Say again what young men should stop being.
Unfuckable losers.
There we go. Thank you.
Or you could go read bell hooks, you know.
Absolutely. Kimberly
Both,
Crenshaw.
maybe both.
Immediately.
Kimberly Crenshaw, go get on some reading lists. Yeah.
Next up, USA Today has the article, America Glorifies What Makes It Lonely and Women Silently Pay the Price. So getting deeper into the capitalism angle, it says, quote, loneliness is the feeling of being cut off from care, affection, and trust. People feel lonely in couples, families, at work, and even in a hyper-connected digital world. It's not proximity that matters, it's presence. And presence requires valuing connection and having access to the time, energy, and physical safety that makes it possible. And here's where it gets tricky. Quote, disconnection isn't incidental, it's systemic. We glorify self-reliance while offering no universal childcare, healthcare, or elder care. Families are told to cope in isolation while the burden falls disproportionately on women. The nuclear family is sold to us as sacred, even patriotic. In reality, it has become a coping mechanism for failed policy that is profitable for a few, exhausting for the many, end quote. Which inevitably brings us back to left-wing populism in stark contrast to right-wing populism, in which we say, they're robbing you fucking blind.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening here. You think that there's a gender dynamic problem happening. Nope. They're robbing you fucking blind. That's what's happening.
And might I say, we talked a little bit earlier about, jobs that tend to have more women or maybe are mostly women. It seems that some of those jobs are somewhat automation proof, at least for now. And that might be why men are struggling more economically, because they are in fields that are very susceptible to automation taking over and reducing the amount of jobs. And I just want to say, if you are experiencing that, and your job has been automated, or you're definitely in fear of it being that way, that's not women's fault. That's just corporate greed fucking with you. Like, let's point where the finger needs to be pointed here and
aim higher.
Aim higher. I was just watching a video today, I don't know, showing fucking robots doing stuff. And look what they can do. Look at all the things they can do. They can extremely slowly walk over to a shelf and extremely slowly take something off the shelf and extremely slowly bring it back to the counter where you can buy your candy. But I do recognize that they will get faster and that we will be living in a world we didn't ask for probably much sooner than I realized that will happen. But that is what's going on here. No one is taking your good paying job from you because they want to go give it to a woman. They're taking all of our jobs and they don't want to pay us for any of it. And they literally are building automated workers so they don't have to deal with us at all. And you got to keep that at the forefront of your mind, because this is so much bigger than the small shit these men are angry about. Like, it's just so much bigger. And they want you to focus on fighting the gender wars instead of seeing what's actually happening. It's agonizing to watch us have the petty small-time fights. Meanwhile, they are, as Jay says, robbing us blind.
This is like old as time, the divide and conquer. This is just another one. Like, we've got gender wars, we've got the generational wars, we've obviously have racial division. Like, that's constantly what has kept this all afloat. Meanwhile, we have recently witnessed the dropping of several of the Epstein files, whatever it is. And what is remarkable in those things isn't really surprising, but it is that there is this group of people who are, despite party alliances or public opposition, are all in the same group doing the same things, trying to maintain power in disgusting ways, these people, but it applies to all people in power. Like, they are a group that is more worried about keeping power than they are about doing things for the country. And it transcends borders, and gender, race, there are different people in the class, but for the most part, it's white men. But that's not even as important to them as maintaining power. And to keep us arguing about all the things that don't really matter, are superficial, are in a lot of ways just made up. Like these stories, like we're
Yeah.
talking about the male loneliness epidemic, that part of it's made up. There is a loneliness epidemic. It is a social issue. That's not sexy. It doesn't create conflict. The conflict is, well, men have a problem, women are fine. Men have a problem, women are the problem. Like that kind of thing keeps people from paying attention to the real issues. And the real issues are there are several thousand people who want everything. And like Amanda said, they really don't care if we have jobs. And then think about, like, logically, what that means in the future. If we have a bunch of unemployed people without the ability to take care of themselves, what do you think those people will do as a solution? Will they just pay us money and have us do art and watch TV? I don't think so. It's pretty dark.
No. Yeah, I think I know where you're going, and you just don't want to get that dark, because I also have been on this train lately. And yeah, like the worst things you can imagine. That's what will happen because they don't care. Yeah.
Don't forget to look out for an AI episode coming out on Best of Left podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
There it is.
But no, Deon, as you're talking about the gender thing, Mike, can you imagine if the middle class actually stopped worrying about what people below
Exactly.
them were getting
Exactly.
and
Mhm.
started worrying about those above them? Like, we would be an unstoppable force. And I think this is what you have to see through, like the division language, the men versus women, middle class versus lower class, races versus, like, do you have citizenship versus being an immigrant? All of that
Mhm,
bullshit,
mhm.
right? It is all divisional, and it
Trans
does serve that
people,
purpose.
being scared of
Yeah,
trans people.
trans
yeah.
people. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, we can be okay with gay people, kinda. But like, we got to draw the line on gender. Whoop, there's no
Mhm.
fluctuation there, even though it's a contract. Can't do that. But all of these are divisional, and we all lose. It doesn't matter if you're in middle class. It doesn't matter if you're stable. If you can't see the writing on the wall, how we treat lower income people right now is how we're going to treat people once AI takes your job. It doesn't matter that you have a college degree, that you went for coding. Well, now we have AI. And guess what AI is really good at? Coding.
Yeah.
You know what people who went to learn how to code are not good at? Just proofing other people's code. Like that isn't necessarily what their degree was meant for, and it's not very satisfying. So, yes, if you're worried about, people below you, you need to look up.
Yeah, in the big picture and the long term, definitely look up. In the meantime, make sure you're also looking sideways, because things are structural and not individual, which is another way that people get stuck in a bad way of thinking that is deeply, deeply unhelpful. So this article goes on to explain like the differing experiences of men who more bottle up their loneliness and pain until it comes out as anger. And then you got your mothers who generally like keep quiet, maybe just for their own safety, but then they get mislabeled as just having mom burnout. And it's like, well, mom burnout, that's just a thing that happens. No further discussion needed about like why are moms getting burned out. But then the article concludes, quote, if loneliness is the symptom, then redesigning our culture for connection is the cure. That means valuing caregivers as infrastructure, not charity. It means treating mothers' mental health as a public priority, not a private burden. It means building communities where people don't just survive but belong. America worships independence, but the cure for our loneliness and the key to our survival is interdependence. If we can name loneliness for what it really is, not weakness, but design, we can begin to reimagine what makes life good in America. End quote. I mean, that, or we just give men AI girlfriends to help prop up the AI bubble
Oh,
and
dear God.
see how that goes.
We can't
Which
go
brings
down
us
this.
to
No.
No,
no.
It's going to get bleak quick.
It's gonna get bleak.
it's going to get bleak. I'm only touching on it. We are coming to the Salon article. Don't blame women for men's loneliness, blame capitalism. We've been circling around this the whole time, but the article does begin. Is Sam Altman trying to get men addicted to erotic chatbots in order to make money off them? Question mark. To which we can say, obviously, yes.
Yes.
But this article, like, it really gets to the heart of the matter with this. It says, quote, an increasing number of influencers, crypto grifters, pickup artists, and gambling websites have come to realize that male isolation creates incredible profit opportunities. It's not just that they're making money off male loneliness. In many cases, capitalist predators are incentivizing young men to abandon the flesh and blood world in favor of staying online, end quote. In essence, continuing, men's ability to adapt to modernity is being stymied by propagandists and grifters who persuade men to adopt antisocial behavior because doing so is incredibly profitable, end quote. They're robbing you fucking blind. No one online except this show has your best heart in mind. That's my argument. They're trying to
probably
make money
true,
off of
though.
you. I think so. They're trying to make money off of you. They are dumber than us. They are not giving you good advice. And if you follow the incentives, it is super clear that the, fucking pills they're selling you between angry rants about women is, like, obviously not the answer to your problems. I don't know how to say that without being condescending, but, like, take a step back. It's really obvious that's not your solution.
It's not the solution, and it's their point. They want to extract from you. That is totally what they want to do.
So I was thinking this whole time about, like, when we're talking about, like, look up, like, thinking about the book Winner Take All by Anand Giridharadas, about how elite institutions have created this, like, imaginary sense that doing good or doing better by doing, or doing good by doing better. I can't remember how he says it, but their whole goal is to just take more and make it seem like that's better for everybody. And people like Sam Altman, I think, are starting to skip that step where I know that they've tried to sell AI as good for everyone, but I don't know that they're trying very hard to make it seem like it's good for everyone. And the gambling, like, that's like, it's fun. Yeah, it's great. You'll make a bunch of money. Who cares? They're not really trying that hard to sell you that the world is getting better. They're just taking, as if they know that the house is on fire and they're just trying to take as much stuff out of it as possible. It's pretty depressing. But bright side being that the less they try to hide it, the easier it is for everyone to see, even the people who are just barely paying attention. Like, I do think the man behind the curtain is standing out in the street with a sign saying, "I'm fucking you over," but people don't know where to look yet. So I think once people know where to look, they'll be able to see the guy with the giant sign.
Yeah.
That's hopeful.
Yeah, that's what I do. I keep it positive.
Yeah.
It reminds me of our recent attack on Venezuela, that even before the attack actually happened, I remember coming across a headline or a comment somewhere. It was like, whatever happened to the whole softening up phase, where you spend like a good year of propaganda convincing the American people that we have to do this? They just figured out, like, oh, we don't really have to do that. Like, we just do stuff. People are not going to be able to stop us. So let's just cut to the chase.
And it's the people aren't going to be able to stop us. The confidence that they have that people aren't going to be able to stop us, that is the most terrifying, because I actually think that they're overestimating their power. I think that people underestimate their own power. And so if we could figure that out and come together on some of this, that would be great. But again, it's, as Deon's saying, divide and conquer. Make sure we are squabbling in the trenches while they just take it all and don't even care if they've sold you a message that you're going to buy into, because that takes a lot of work and effort and marketing and all those focus groups. That just, what a waste of time. Let's just do what we want to do. We're in the brazen era, I guess. And we got to figure out that we can push back against it before it's too late.
I think what worries me is, like, what gets offered as an alternative, because I do have the thought that, of course, I don't think that Trump's support, that his coalition support is as strong as they think it is. I absolutely agree with everything Amanda said. What fear I have is that we don't offer as much of an alternative, that it goes back to the stay with, what you know versus this, or they're kind of similar. They're going to have similar policies. Everybody's, done war. We've said we're not going to do war, and then we do war. Like, this continuously is a cycle, that being able to distinguish between the candidates, I think, is going to be so important come 2028.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that, because I was actually thinking, I was kind of lumping in, the administration and all the tech CEOs and oligarchs together. Like, I wasn't even really thinking about it on the political level, because they all have the same MO. Like, it's just take what isn't yours, get the most that you possibly can out of people, extract, right? Like, hyper capitalist mindset. Like, this is ours for the taking. And they all have that attitude. They are
Yeah.
all cut from this same cloth. And look, it's a cloth that we have stitched together as a society. It's not like it came from nowhere, but it's on some souped up overdrive level. And I think that for a long time, people probably felt like, yeah, well, it's not great, but it's not that bad. Like, my life is mostly normal. But like, when things start to crumble more, then it will be too late. So when do you start taking action, right?
Well, and I think people are ripe for that change, right? I mean,
Mhm.
like, looking at Mamdani, like, that election is a testament to how
Yeah.
eager people are for a drastic change.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's, do we get it offered to us? Like, is
Yeah.
there mechanisms in which someone like that can, have broader power? And I know you weren't speaking like politically, but I
Oh, yeah.
keep hearing, like, in relation to, the top 1%
Yeah.
and the Silicon Valley folks, that they own both parties.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And I feel like under those conditions, people then end up feeling so hopeless
Absolutely. Yeah.
that we get caught in this cycle. I think we are ripe for a huge change. We are ripe for an FDR.
Yeah.
So I am really hoping that in 2028, the candidates that get put up are strong ones, especially in the primary, because I do think that we could have a, maybe not Memdani level, but something similar. I mean,
Yeah.
Rahm
I hope we
Emanuel,
can get some for 2026. Oh, yeah, Jesus.
Gavin Newsom.
Oh boy.
No, not those
Stop
Deon,
trying to make me sad,
we're
Deon.
losing you.
Yeah. So in that article, it says this, which reminded me of something else. So it says, quote, all market themselves with the implicit promise that they're helping men improve their lives, but instead they sell a view of masculinity that is cut off from emotions, valorizes hustle over having a well-balanced social life, and encourages staying at home instead of taking the risk of getting out in the world to meet people, which made me think to include this article, which I think is more funny and a little bit groan inducing. It's called Unlocking Economic Mobility Through Social Connectedness. And it's written by the CEO of Purpose Built Communities, which I'm not familiar with. And though there's nothing actually like really terrible about their advice, the whole framing could not be more capitalism influenced.
Yeah.
So essentially, the point is that knowing people is often financially beneficial. It's like the old saying, your network is your net worth, which she actually mentions in the article. So, like, if you're being taught the hustle and grind culture of the manosphere, and they're saying that the best thing you can do is essentially lock yourself in your home all day. And if you're in that situation and the idea of trying to stave off loneliness isn't enough to get you outside, then maybe I thought, well, the idea that you could make more money if you go make friends and know people would be like, maybe that would get people out of the house and help them connect. But that's definitely what that article was pushing for. It's just so depressing that we have to frame things that way, because that'll
Do
actually,
you want to
like,
make money? Go make friends.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
totally like that.
Exactly.
They are resources to be invested.
Mind.
Yeah.
That's kind of my ick about it, where it's like our relationships are then transactional.
Yep.
And like, to some degree, relationships are transactional, but I think more and more part of why people don't feel as connected, even if they have friends, has to do with the fact that it's, what am I getting out of this, instead of like, are we both pouring equally into the friendship, which happens a lot less frequently than you would assume.
Yeah.
I've said this before, and I want to reiterate. Donald Trump is the first perfect American president. He is the perfect
I know.
embodiment of everything that is wrong with this country.
No, he really is.
Yeah.
It's stunning. It's like someone slapping us in the face with a cartoon of ourselves. Like,
Yeah.
it's very, very unsettling.
It's really just a mirror, but the amount of people who want to be like, this is not who we are.
That
like,
drives me insane.
Yeah.
Like that
I
one,
know.
like
I mean, I still see pieces
It's
like
still
that.
happening. It's still
Yeah.
happening.
Like, at what point do we agree this is who we are, but this isn't who we want to be?
Right.
Oof. I don't know. People don't like to change or admit things about themselves.
No, they don't, per our whole episode.
I had two thoughts about your network is your net worth in rapid succession just now. The first was the people who find themselves in pyramid schemes and burn all of their relationships to the ground because they try to mine their friendships for profit and become creepy and cult-like. And people don't like that. The other thought I had was I've met one of these people who was not part of a pyramid scheme. They were just my network is my net worth kind of a person. And they reached out to me and we went and got coffee and everything seemed good. And we're just like, yeah, like we could get to know each other and we're interested in politics. We're interested in that field. And, it wasn't just like a random person I thought I might be friends with. It was like we might be interested in being in the same network. Like we could introduce each other to people or whatever, right? That kind of was the foundation of it. And then a few months later, I heard this person give a speech about how to build your network for the sake of building political power and making positive change and like things we would like. But he like laid out the exact step-by-step strategy that he used when he got in touch with me. And the ick was overwhelming. I have not gotten over it.
Yeah.
This was a long time ago. And I just thought, I never want to talk to that person again. Like it was so, how to build profitable friends in a factory sort of a thing, right? It was so clinical and calculated that I was just like, that's not how to do it. Don't make friends that way for sure. Oof. All right, often in the past, we have talked about loneliness or the power of community or the power of third spaces in a variety of ways. And so this comes up again because there's all kinds of stuff that goes into it. Public architecture, public space, like how it's built, how it's designed, all these things can help people in their loneliness because as we keep saying, it is not individual, it is systemic. So just real briefly, the Atlantic adds to that list why America needs more public pools. And I'm not even going to bother quoting from it. It just basically says the same thing. It's a little bit of a climate change angle because we're all going to need pools soon because it's going to be too hot. And a reminder that the only reason a lot of places don't already have public pools is because of racism. Because when communities were told that they needed to integrate their public spaces, they decided to fill in their pools with cement rather than let non-white people swim in them. And so bringing back public pools is a pretty righteous cause on those points. Plus, they are good for mental and physical health on top of being a place where you could meet up with other people and feel less lonely. So pools, we're in favor, I think.
Yeah.
I think like that kind of sums it up. Like what we're not fighting a loneliness epidemic necessarily. That's how it manifests. But we are fighting a patriarchy epidemic. We are fighting a capitalism epidemic. We are fighting a white supremacy epidemic. The three horsemen, I guess there's a fourth somewhere, colonialism. Like, yeah.
There you go.
But those are the sources of our problem. And like the public pools being cemented over, that, it's a thing that I learned about relatively recently. Like that's really emblematic of what is causing this kind of loneliness, this ingrained fear of the other that America has probably uniquely among countries because of our origin, because of the fear of the, black slaves doing to white slavers what they did to them, the indigenous people doing to white colonists, what they did to them. This country's built on some savage ideas and savage things that happened. And we've never fully addressed it. And now we just constantly carry this low grade to high grade fear of the other. And it is amplified very easily through Fox News, through the manosphere, all these things. And until we deal with that internalized fear, it is difficult to go talk to someone, because what if they're one of them that want to do the bad things that I know that they definitely want to do? That's kind of what we're dealing with. And it amplified, like you can see it through Gen Z, amplified through social media in a way that we're just not equipped to deal with yet.
I've always thought that the line, the home of the brave in our national anthem is telling on us a little bit. It's a little, the lady doth protest too much. It's, if you're really brave, do you have to go around talking about it that much? I don't know.
But if I could be so bold as to talk about this public space, right? I am the youngest person on the podcast. I would like to clarify that before I go into this.
Here we go.
Growing up, I went to the public pool. I didn't go with friends. I always saw my friends there. I went to the public library. I also ran into my classmates, ran into my friends at the public library. There was so much more public life back in the 90s, early 2000s. And I even think that it was degrading before that. I just happened to benefit from the systems that were still there. Like we were still in the process of getting rid of the public spaces. So now I look at my nieces, and the oldest one is 13. And what she struggles with is anytime her friends want to hang out, they have to go to somebody's house. So the house has to be willing to accommodate 5 teenagers, if you will. And that's not always practical. I mean, everybody has their own things that are going on at their house, that it ends up being maybe a monthly hangout, if that. And that concerns me. And I also am sad for her childhood that there aren't more. Now, my sister does a good job of like getting her out, but I think, why is that just on parents, and that we don't take more responsibility as a society to provide those spaces, especially for like youth? I think adults benefit from it as well. Like, I don't want it to make it just about the youth, but since we're talking about Gen Z, their loneliness, like, of course they're lonely. They're not having the same experience that we had in our childhood. Like, I remember points of feeling lonely. You know, I moved around. You might feel lonely in a new place. But overall, did I feel like a lonely child? No, I was more felt misunderstood than lonely. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's not just public pools. Like, it's easy for us to pull a specific article about public pools, but it's just public spaces in general. Like, we need more of them, and we need to get creative about what can be public, because hanging out at McDonald's and getting the cops called on you, like, that's not what our teenagers should be experiencing in life. They should have places that they can go to be with other people their age.
Yeah, we don't have time to go down a whole modern parenting rabbit hole, but I did learn within the last year or two something that I think parents will probably be a lot more familiar with, is how wildly the rules have changed about kids hanging out and under what circumstances. And one of the big ones was, and I was shocked to hear it, that a lot of the time the parent sending the kid over to play comes along now. You know, I grew up in the 90s and we didn't do that. And so like, that's different than what I'm familiar with. So that feels creepy to me and unnecessary. People have their reasons and their fears about their kids' safety. But what is inarguable is that if you have to schedule 2 adults' lives, then the amount of windows of time in which kids will have to get together is smaller. If kids can go on their own and go to their friend's house whenever they're free, and you don't have to worry about the parent's schedule, there's more time. And so just at a structural level, even if you make all the best arguments in the world for child safety and why it's important to go with your child for every play date, what is inarguable is that they are going to have fewer play dates and they are going to be shorter. And so when you add up the amount of time during childhood that a child hyper supervised by a parent has to play with other kids, it's just going to be smaller. That's it. And so that's part of the calculation that needs to be made. Now, if you want advice from Joe Biden's Surgeon General, I did just want to throw in, you know, this is from 2023, but we used to have a government that said things like this. We don't anymore, but they are talking about the loneliness epidemic. I don't think they gendered it. The NPR headline is just, America has a loneliness epidemic. Here are 6 steps to address it. It says, in response, the advisory outlines the framework for a new social strategy. It's based on 6 foundational pillars, which are strengthening social infrastructure, which includes things like parks and libraries, as well as public programs, enacting pro-connection public policies at every level of government, including things like accessible public transportation or paid family leave. Pausing to point out that I only read it today and was amused that they put an or between accessible public transportation and paid family leave. Like, pick one. Mobilizing the health sector to address the medical needs that stem from loneliness, reforming digital environments to critically evaluate our relationship with the technology. Boy, that is a soft way of describing what needs to be done to our digital environments. Deepening our knowledge through more robust research into the issue. Well, all of that got cut by Doge. And cultivating a culture of connection, which is incredibly vague. And I wonder what they meant by that on a governmental level. But again, as I said, that's coming from a government that at least considered thinking about doing things for people. We don't have that government anymore. So I have a more up-to-date piece of advice. As I promised at the beginning, this is something that anyone of any age can do. And my advice for staving off loneliness is to become an anti-imperialist. Given that Trump has now gone full 19th century imperialist on Venezuela while actively threatening other countries, now is a great time to make new friends while protesting imperialism, political organizing, joining mutual aid networks that think globally while acting locally, et cetera, et cetera. Remember, almost nothing that's worth doing can be done alone. So if you start with the idea that you want to be part of something impactful, you basically have no choice but to join with other like-minded people, and the friends will follow. So that's my advice.
And, if you want to hear a really concrete example, we talked about what the volunteers for Zohran Mamdani's campaign gained in terms of a social structure they didn't have before by getting involved with the campaign. And that's over on our Gen Z humor episode.
Turns out political organizing is fun because it gets you out of the house and you get to hang out with people.
Yay. And you might do some good, which we desperately need.
Exactly. All right. If you have any thoughts you want to share, you can get in touch with us. You can leave a voicemail or send a text to 202-999-3991. Reach out to us on the Signal app at bestoftheleft.01, or you can send an email to j@bestoftheleft.com. Thanks for listening, and remember that this is all really happening, so continue to be decent, act like what you do and say matters, and do what matters most.